Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Dialogue with the Youth so on Gunjur Online TV. Once again, today is Friday, and normally we don't do Fridays, but I know occasionally we come, depending on how busy the availability of our guests. And the time today is about in Leeds in the United Kingdom is about nearly 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. We are in the same with the same time in the Gambia, and Eastern time is about nearly 4 minutes to 3 o'clock. Today we're going to discuss a very important and timely topic, in considering from the perspective of our country. And our topic today is leadership failure, corruption, incompetence. Is that a threat to national security? And to discuss this very, very important, we have one of the Gambia's finest, and one of the Gambia's most consistent, commentator, political analysis and security analysis. You can name it. If you have followed this individual, you will know what I'm talking about. If you have gone through his post and his comments on live since Jamia time, to date, he has been very consistent and fair and balanced. I'm not going to introduce him anyway. He will do that, even though I know he will be modest, but I'm not going to be modest with introducing him, because we need to celebrate our finest people. We need to celebrate our people who worked really tirelessly, because even today he walked and he just finished work and he jumped on his bench, and this program is going to be here. But it's going to be very interesting and educational, and it's going to be fair, and it's going to be balanced, and it's going to be based on facts, and to discuss this very, 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 timely topic, about the whole issue of leaderships and the corruptions and the institutions in our country. We have one of the best, as I always said, and I will keep reiterating that, and we'll welcome Mr. Sulayman Ben Suwareh to Dialogue with the Youth. So welcome, Mr. Suwareh.
Oh, thank you very much, Ebrima, for welcoming me back to my home. Gunjur Online is my home.
Yeah.
And thank you for all those kind words.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think our listeners are all over the place. Listening, from different places. Gambia, Africa, America, and UK, and Europe. Sorry, and they're listening to you. Can you briefly? I know this is your home, but we always get new listeners,
yeah.
and they want to know who you are. Please, briefly introduce yourself, to our listener. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Sulayman Ben Suwareh, as you stated, and I'm from Bakau, a family man, and I've been living in the United Kingdom since 1995. I've served the Gambia National Army, and I left the Gambia National Army in 1992, when I served 5 years and had 1 year more to serve. And the reason for leaving was actually due to the conditions that were in the army, and I did not want to be part of the catalyst for the disaster that we finally lived through. My experience from the army is as a military intelligence. I obviously served in different units, and I served as a training instructor and other functions. But my main operations was, an intelligence officer serving under the British Army training team. And I left Gambia in 1995 for obvious reasons, that my security and my security for that matter, as I don't want to get involved in what was going on, and the only safest thing to do was to leave the jurisdiction of the country. Hence, my background, I cannot be living peace in the country. And I managed to get to the United Kingdom, where I live since, and I've worked here. I had my family here, and I had the opportunity again to re-educate myself with the democracy, rule of law, and in my field as a contract security intelligence officer. I had the opportunity again, and I thank God for that, to be part of the struggle. And what we call the struggle, it's part of serving our national duty. and to fight what was in place, the dictatorship, and we managed to start the process of the change when we won the elections decisively and started to start a transitional government. And again, I continue as a critic because I have not seen what was expected. The contract was not followed through, and I kept my platform and I continue and using my voice and any little energy I have in order to continue this struggle of liberating our country and try to see that country, where it should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suwareh, and those who follow the struggle. I was a keen follower of the struggle. Those who were playing in the struggle, even at the onset, when you were indefatigably, and with disarmingly, your energy level. I couldn't believe, whether you walk when I didn't know you. I say, do you have only to come online and fight for the liberation of the Gambia, and not only physically, but you utilize your background through investigations, to Poncho, James, it's a complex system, but porous are also at the same time. And now that because of following you, we know how porous it was, even though it was really, really tight fit in that part of the world. And we have to celebrate you for that, And the band is not now that your face is showing off. And what amazes me is your consistency and your fairness and balance. Anytime anything happens, you give credit where credit is due, and you give your analysis. I don't think I will call you a critic, but I know you have Gambia at heart. You could have easily fall back and enjoy your life, or maybe you will join the boss, but no, you refuse. And I remember when the changes came, you didn't rush. You were very cautious when everybody is, with euphoria and jubilance and all those things, But what I'm gonna say is, maybe your clairvoyance, if that is the right word, what you predict, what you say. I've been following them. Is fantastic, Mr. Suwareh. But yes, the kleptocratic dictator, who is one of the most abuser of the in the African continent, is gone, But it seems the job is not done, and because I'm seeing you saying things, doing things almost the same like how you were when Jammeh was there. Are you disappointed with the current leadership?
Actually, I am very disappointed, but I was not surprised anyway, because once you understand liberation struggle, that's why when you said my client or anything, it's based on experience. It's based on learning from others, learning from other areas, how things got changed. Look at South Africa. Did South Africa achieve change? No. It's a process. It's a system. It's not the individual. It's the character of the kind of people. I mean, you might remove Ben Suwareh from a position, but if you replace the next person with Ben Suwareh's character, you haven't bring about change. I mean, I am completely disappointed, absolutely. Because why am I disappointed? We managed to achieve something as Gambians together, something that have never been achieved before, something that the Gambia could have packaged and sold to the world. We had a new beginning, and we decided to be selfish again and self-centered and put our country and our people back into a course of destruction. That's where we are. We are not out of the woods. We had an opportunity. You see, the Gambia, we have a story, as every country has its story, or anybody would have their story. And unfortunately, we don't learn from our story. The entire war, I mean, even all Gambians itself doubted themselves when it was time to gain our independence. Gambia was an impoverished nation. Gambia cannot be a sovereign nation. They tried to negotiate our sovereignty. But we had leaders then. And that's the sad part of our country today. It's as we have digressed. During the time of independence, our leaders seems to be more sophisticated. But it's not because of they had better certificates. No, they are of better character. They were of better character because they had the interest of the nation far more than what we have today. That's why we are failing and we are digressing. And those people negotiated and believed. And what did they believe in? They believed in the Gambian people. They never went out there to say that the Gambia have enough mineral resources to depend on. No, it's the contrary. They went out there to make a case. They said the Gambia would, take its strength from its diversity. You see, diversity is a buzzword today. But our founding fathers used diversity, and they use it to say our diverse people. The strength of our diverse people would be the bedrock, to build the Gambia for the future. And it was these premises. Yes, we have not fought a war, but we went onto the negotiation table. We use our intellectuality, we use our wisdom, and negotiate our freedom. When most of African countries were this thing, and not only negotiate our freedom, but the founding fathers had the wisdom and the courage to decide that they're going to take independence and choose a multi-party democracy to be the beginning and the path to drive the country forward. How many African countries took independence and decided or think or believe that they have to go on to taking one party state? The kind of leaders of Kwame Nkrumah even could not believe in a multi-party democracy. But the Gambia, it was Gambia and Senegal. That these are the countries that had this belief. Then we had an opportunity, but we dropped that ball, and we, prioritizing our personal interest over the national interest. And we have seen what where that led us. It led us to 1981 coup. That was a moment that we should have reflected and decided to do things the right way. But again, it was an opportunity and it became a missed opportunity. In fact, people started to entrench themselves on, thinking that they have to use all those mechanisms that would divide us, rather than the mechanisms that unite us. You see, we are only strong when we are together. And the Gambia have said this. You listen to our national anthem. Everything is based on unity. The unity of faith. That's why we never had the word Allah. We had our gods in there so that everybody can see themselves. It's about Gambia. It was not based on a tribe or anything else. It's based on our people, our unity. But we had the national pledge. We talked about unison, working together, as if we decide, walk apart. We will not fulfill our desires. That was clear. We knew what we needed to do. But instead, we continue the party political systems in order to entrench ourselves, to deceive our people, to misinform our people, thinking that keeping our people in the dark, that will give them opportunity to rule forever. And they rule forever, what it means is so that they can rule and pass it on to their own children. And this was that kind of elite mindset that they had. And 1981, we were saved again by our neighbor because of what happened. We had this opportunity. What did we do with it? The same conditions, the same reasons that excuse, I say. Because why did I use the word excuse? Because the people that took over 1994, they were never interested in bringing about change. Because they were brought up in a system that made them believe that you have to seek power in order to benefit yourself. They were never better, and they could have been better. That's why it was dangerous to bring up people in darkness. If Gambians were enlightened, Gambians would not have allowed 5 vagabonds to come over and seize their constitution. But it was our ignorance because we were divided. I mean, that's why it was possible for 1994 to happen. Yes, the corruption, the selfish interest, everything else, these were the reasons advanced in 1981. And it happened in 1994. And if we look at why, the reasons why, we have seen the TRRC been advanced. Why did this the system stay, the dictatorship entrench itself for 22 years? We have seen where people come out to say that they preserve themselves and their family. That's why they supported the system. That's why they stayed within the system. And they have not seen anything wrong in supporting the system once they were safe, even though they're not safe. But they rather have that sense of security. I mean, in order just to be within the system. It was that divisiveness. It was that misinformation. And obviously the dictator came and put it up by misinforming Gambians more, by dividing Gambians more. What was perception became reality. We all took part in it. In a sense, every tribe took part in it. In a sense, every gender took part of it. Women were used, men were used, youths were used. Our elders, the religious establishment was used. Our technocrats were used. The soldiers were used. That's why we should not only emphasize issues on our soldiers. What we had was a failure of leadership. And if I say failure of leadership, let me emphasize, I don't only mean the political leadership. It's entirety of Gambian society, we failed that leadership. And that's, we have to restore that. When we stayed and managed and realized, again, the entire world doubted us, and rightly so, because it has never been done. You have never seen an entrant dictatorship been removed without bloodshed, for that matter. You have never heard a dictatorship been removed through the ballot box. But Gambians make that possible. Through our strength of what? Bringing our diversity together, forming a coalition, and decided to take it up. That's the reason we used to disarm. We use our unity to disarm the dictator within 6 weeks. Yes, within 22 years, people were working, in different areas, fighting in different areas, sacrificing their lives, and lives been lost, and everything, which would not have happened if we had done it earlier. But it's possible in the Gambia when every country, every analyst on everything. I remember coming online saying that it's possible, and people doubting me. And yes, challenge me, and I agree, because they have never put these issues in the perspective of Gambia. That's another mistake we have. We never think that Gambia we are different. And there's a difference here. Gambia, we are unique. There is no country, inland country like the Gambia, who are related, interrelated, have no boundaries for that matter. All the boundaries are perceptions, and those perceptions, unfortunately, we are trying to make them reality. And it was those lack of those boundaries coming together. We brought about this change, remove a dictatorship without conflict. Zimbabwe have been in the struggle before us. We have seen other African country giants who have been in the struggle. And again, I will have to say this, I will have to emphasize this. One of our biggest resources became the diaspora. And as Muslims, as Christians, and as other believers have, whenever God tests you, God will always give you an ability, will give you a resource to prove yourself. And what God gave us was the diaspora. Through my research, through my preparation, I have mingled in. I have not the Cameroonian, Nigerian, but African diasporas. I've been into most of their forums. There's none like the Gambian diaspora. I know we don't like to see ourselves sophisticated, but it's because of sophistication. That's what added the value and make it possible. Without a diaspora like the Gambian diaspora, the Gambia would not have been liberated in 2016. But I brought this into perspective here because down the line we'll see where we fail and where we need that leadership to come from. And the leadership cannot emerge in the Gambia without considering the diaspora part of that leadership.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suwareh. gonna have a long night, and definitely it's gonna be very interesting. And I'm just gonna thank our listeners. Ibrahim Makalo is greeting you. My own brother Jesuma Sise is saying Degit Ben, and our Ture Kinte also says Salam alaikum, gentlemen. And Lamin Kerejani, my own brother, says that our people just never learn. It looks like history is repeating itself again with the advent of new dictatorship. Ben, it is important you bring the correlation, from our founding fathers, the leaders, you call them. Even if they don't have the tools, they don't have the internet, but they were able to stare, even though we underrate them then, because when we were young, we didn't know politics. It's just like the hypes around everything. We think Jawara is nonsense. They didn't do. Now, from the reflection and the tools that they had that time, we have to only respect them. My namesake, Pa Ibrahim Ba, the former owner of Isamari, and he told me most of the project that Yaya Jammeh just bring forward, just to confuse us more, were all designed because he was at Lands. He was sent here for studies, and most of the things that he drafted, those are the very things that he told me, they were implementing. The Brufutu Heights, the Bruce Bees, and all those things were all Jawara's projects, we can say and say. And you say, so do you think we didn't have leadership after Jawara, and we didn't have leadership today? Because, you said, the leadership that we have today need to go. That is our problem. So we had leadership then, but we didn't have leadership today. Can you just elaborate that? How can you convince other people who said, no, his leader is doing well? But what did you mean here by leadership? Let's just, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I have to put this to clarity here. When I say leadership, I'm not talking about individual people.
Yes.
We have individual good Gambian leaders. But leadership here, when you talk about a leader and leadership are two different meanings. And leader is an individual. Leadership is a collective of leaders, performing a role of leading the people. You see, and in this sense, and leadership comes from different sectors. We have the private sector, we have the public sector, we have the private sector, obviously the businessmen, we have the public sector, obviously these are the politicians and the government workers, and we have the civil society, which comprises of the non-government organizations, from the religious establishment to civil society organization. And you have to have combination of all these in order and clarify them as the national leader. That's what governance entails. Governance entails these three sectors. You cannot have one of the sectors perform without other. But in this sense, the political leadership is instrumental and vital, but most important, because it had the mandate to lead both institutions, both other sectors. Because they draft the laws, they put the laws, and they enforce the laws. And they are the one given the national coffers to control, to distribute the law, and to create that environment. They have, you see, the most important thing, that's where it is. The constitution gave them the power to have an executive and an executive cabinet that would be taking responsibility for everything. That's why all the other sectors have oversight ministry on them. We have the Minister of Trade and so on. We have the Minister of Local Government and Lands and so on. That's why the political establishment is quite important in this sense. What we had in the Gambia and what we had made mistake is, you see, when the politicians fail, it affects the entire country. As I said, because of the role of leadership. And I would reference Gambians to go and read the Sadauda autobiography, where Sadauda in fact explains, and I think I'll differ from my understanding of what happened there. Sadauda explained, yes, it was progressive. People have to understand how progressive our leaders were. You see, let's look at the PPP. The PPP was formed majority by people who have never been to school. PPP was formed from people who already organized themselves and understand themselves as people to benefit each other, to help their own people. People that normally came from the protectorate. People who were not, franchise. Because Gambia or every colony was divided. People within the colony, people outside the colony. People within the colony are franchised, they can vote for their local government and so on. But other people, they were indirectly ruled from the colony. And these people came to the capital. People like, Keba Nyabali, people like, Sanjali Bojang, Wasa Tourist, and others. They decided that, look, we have to support each other. And that's how they had their association. And when the Gambia was becoming a republic or going for an independence, they decided to ask for, think of building a political party in order to represent themselves. This is where they went and scout, and they went and looked for a political leader. And you see, they regarded education. They decided to go and look for the most educated among them. They went to Dr. Marino. Dr. Marino was not interested in politics. Dr. Marino recommended Sadaulah because of his character and because of his activeness in student politics both in Ghana and in Edinburgh. Then Sadaulah became the leader of the PPP. That's how it happened. But the PPP was called the People's Protectorate Party, which defined them as who they are. But to be progressive, Sadaulah decided that we need to reconstitute ourselves. And by reconstituting ourselves, our names should define what we represent. In a more progressive terms, that's where the progressive came in. People Progressive Party. That's where the progressive came from. But the mistake here is, when in order to marginalize, that's why I always emphasize, in a democracy, you need an opposition. And you need a vibrant opposition in order for that government to perform well. You need a watchdog. And what Jawara did, and he talked about in his book, was actually to break the UP. And now, instead of the PPP thinking as, or the leaders of the PPP thinking as national leaders, they thought about as political party leaders. You see, now this is where, when I say talk about personal interest, it do come in different way. Rather than the national interest, they looked at party interest. When a country has few educated class, now you decided to break the opposition based on, look, come and join us to have the cabinet position. What have you created? You have done two things, two damage. One, you have created a politic of opportunism. And we are seeing that history still now. People will always follow the government in order to gain from that government. That concept started then. The second thing is, you have disintegrated an institution. The opposition is part of the institution. You made the opposition weak. Now, what's the point of calling a country a multi-party where the party in power, in control, decided to use the power of the incumbent in order to undermine the opposition? In this case, you don't have an opposition. What will happen if you don't have an opposition? You become complacent. You know that the party, I mean, you are not going to lose elections. And if you know that you're not going to lose elections, whatever the case, then you not deliver. And this is where this failure of delivery started. The opportunism, corruption started from then on. You see, that's where we started to lose the leadership. We started to lose the leadership, and most of these MPs. Remember, what we had was a parliamentary-based system, where you have to become an MP to be a minister.
Minister, yes.
Yeah, only the Minister of Justice, and I think used to be a technocrat. Now, and most of these MPs started to cross-carpet to the PPP in order to become ministers. Now, the opposition UP. Literally, broke off. Now, this thing continued, and imagine this was in this this was late 60s actually. We had independence in 65. About 68, these things it started hard when we had a republic, 1970. Yeah, and now, as we went on, what starts from the top would trickle down. That's what trickled down to the system itself. And people started to think about self rather than nation. If you ask me, what should Jawara have done? Hence, the most progressive thing would have been, Jawara should have invited competent MPs from the UP into government and let them maintain their position as opposition. Let them deliver for the nation. That would have been a class act. I mean, you don't give them, you don't bring them into coalition because of anything else. You bring them into coalition because you need all the talent. Because you need all the talent in order to function. Because you lack that human resource. But now, because of they cross-carpet, they are part of your party. Now you've started to give positions, very critical institutions or ministries to people who cannot even read and write. And again, we all knew how these people were elected. Most of the elections was through patronage. If you go to a district or you go to a constituency, what you have to, where do you have to select your MP? From the biggest cabilo, the biggest family, who has influence. It was not based on the best people. It was not based on the character of the people. It was not based on the education of the people or anything. It's based on the winnability of the people. Now, if these people come into government or into position and they started to misbehave, you dare not move them out. You dare not punish them because of you don't want to lose your majority in parliament. You don't want to lose your vote. And these people started to take this advantage. That's how things started to, to deteriorate. But regardless of what was happening, Gambia was far in a better place than most countries in Africa. But we have to learn this thing, a lesson again. Because why did I say Gambia was far better off? Go and look at the population of the Gambia at the time of independence. And you look at Gambia in 1965. And by 1980, go and look at the population of Gambia. Gambia population become one of the countries that grew far more than any other country in the world. 5.something% growth by migration. People started to migrate to Gambia, to settle in the Gambia, because, as I said, there was something called a Gambian dream, where people come in, and these people come from even countries that have better economy, bigger economy, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Guinea-Conakry, from Senegal, from every other West African country came to the Gambia because they can do something in the Gambia they cannot be in their own countries. There was opportunities and everything else. You see, Gambia health sector was, yes, we didn't have big hospitals, but we had management. We have preventative measures. We have the primary health care. And all these things have helped us. That was a leadership we had. The Gambia economy was not big, but Gambia economy too was in a kind of setting. But we lost, as gradually we went on, we keep on losing it because corruption started to creep in. Incompetence came in. And that's how we lost our leadership. And 1981, we had the war in South. But again, let me get to 1981 here.
Yeah, before we go there, then just let me just say hi to our listeners and thanking them for listening. Khadija Janneh says, interesting topic, EB. As Mr. Suwareh has rightly stated, ignorance is a big issue in the Gambia. It's one of the biggest threats in our country's progress. Plus, our current leadership has failed us. Welcome to Dialogue with the Youth, by Pamodu Conte. He said, great, so keep up the good job, and passes great platform. Khadija went on and say again, that's absolutely right. For anything to progress, especially where decision making and delivery is concerned, you need an opposition party. Even at the workplace, environment managers need challenge. So a lot of people are watching you all over the place. You can share these videos so that so people can listen, because I'm telling you, this is going to be interesting, because Mr. Suwareh knows what he is talking. And the transition, we bring the historical tour de force so that the young people who didn't know Jawara's time know how transition come, because Yaya Jammeh came and told us all nonsenses, and we believe them. Some of the people who are in the forefront today were either very young when Yaya came, or they were born during Yaya's time. And he just told us all lies about Jawara's time and all those things. So it is important before we transition from Jammeh to Barrow and all those things. We'll make it quick. But Mr. Suwareh, you can go ahead from 1981, and from there we will transition to Jammeh and to Barrow.
And if you don't mind, we can do this program in two parts, because so that we can deal with it properly.
Yes.
And in 1981, when it happened, and yes, again, you see, our problem as human beings, not Gambians for that matter, people would take advantage. The weakness of Jawara was his lineage. And it's understandable to be lenient if you are born and brought up in the Gambia, because of our nature and our how we related. And this is a challenge for any leader in the Gambia. You have to be very, very careful. Your leniency would be exploited. Your leniency would be exploited. That's why you used to hear people say that Jawara is not the problem. It's the people around Jawara. It's because of the leniency. But in 1981, when it happened, the PPP have learned some lessons. And if you, in the new administration, they started to address some of this issue. And I'll point to this thing. One, when we talk about corruption, PPP tried to fight corruption. They constituted commissions of inquiry. What happened? It failed because of the political will. Again, as I said, the patrons. If you have the patron system that enable the government, you to be in government, you depend on them. And the people who commit the corruption are the families and friends and relatives of these people. And once they commit these crimes, it's hard to get them. Through the due process. And we had commission of inquiry when Fafambai was brought in as justice minister. And the reason Jawara brought in Fafambai was because Fafambai was known at the time to be renowned as a strict kind of magistrate and a hardliner and stuff like that. But it collapsed. The commission did not do this thing. That was one, failed. Two, the Gambia decided, that's where they decided to have the Social Security Housing Finance Corporation to address some of the issues that were raised and the discontentment about Gambian public sector workers and Gambian for that matter, not having a retirement, proper retirement package, not having welfare, housing welfare and so on. And we all seen the importance of Social Security now. When Jammeh came, Social Security became one of the most liquid institutions in the country. Then that credit to have to be given to Sarawak. The PPP, it's something they created. And the other thing is they decided to have armed force, security, upgrade the security sector. Upgrade it to the sense of what? Yes, they addressed the need that was failing in the force and before it was. One is to establish a national security services, which was called SSS, and NSS, National Security Services. The other was to create a national army and a national gendarmerie. And obviously, again, it did not last. It failed and become you have been used as a catalyst to do this thing. But what failed was the leadership. Again, the problems that we had in the public sector had found themselves in the security sector. I don't have time to deliberate on that, but we all had allegations in the TRRC about corruption, about nepotism, about, every other thing that we all see in the private sector or in the public sector. But these are not only the change that happened. Yes, Gambia had a blueprint. In the first time, and one of the first countries in Africa then started to think intergenerational development. When you talk about what Mr. Bat told you about that some of this project that Jammeh had was all kind of designed by the PPP. PPP become one of the few countries that started to think intergeneration. PPP started to think of 20 to 50 years of Gambia development. They had a blueprint. This is before Senegal. Now it becomes a trend. Senegal have March, they have their 50 years. Ivory Coast have that, Ghana have it, and every country now is doing it. Because countries cannot be developed in decades or 2 decades. It has to be developed in generations. And this blueprint, that's where the concept of the Singapore of Africa came from. That they want to transfer the Gambia as Singapore of Africa. And that too was informed by the strength that Gambia had. Gambia benefited after elections, benefit in the transit trade, where things are imported into the Gambia due to the enabling environment and exported into other West African countries. This was the concept, and that's why the blueprint was part of developing the port. The same port extension you're hearing now, it was a blueprint from the Southern government, and they started the development. It still have not been done. It's still not been done. And the other concept was the Gamtel. That's why Gambia had the Gamtel, because they known in order to create a conducive environment, they needed telecoms. And the trip that Gawara went to France, even though France was not our traditional development partner, as UK was, but he went to France and asked for this assistant to have the telecoms. That's why we had the Gamtel, and we all know the benefit of Gamtel. Then it became second in Africa. The other thing they had was to diversify or to upgrade our tourism and to have government to start to have more shares or control over our investment in the tourism sector. This what brought the investment into Senegambia and Kairaba and the Gambia Hotel School. So in order to create the hotel school to bring out the workforce, skilled workforce that is needed for this hotel. But again, to upgrade, to have upmarket tourists to come and visit the Gambia. And that money was taken from the Nordic countries, from Norway and so forth, that gave us the grant in order to do that. You see, they have ideas. I mean, either roads or airports, any upgrade that needed to be done was done strategically. It was not done politically. But this is where the differ. Talking about the university we talk about today, UTG, which institution did it use? It used the same territorial institutions that Saudi Arabia left there. It used the MDI, it used the Gambia College and everything else. You see, everything was done based on sustainability. Probably their ambitions were not that huge, but again, it was to manage. Everything was planned. It was not just to have development for political reasons, but it was upgraded. I mean, these are things they've done. But the most important thing is, if 2 things are not taken care of, incompetence, corruption, you can have all the wealth that you want, but the country would not develop. Not only would not develop, but that country would end up to be destroyed. That's why national security looks at the economy. National security looks at these characters. And the example is here. All the mineral wealthy countries in Africa, went through civil war, isn't it? Yes. We have Sierra Leone, we have Ivory Coast, we have, we still have Central African orders. Because of what is the difference here? They have wealth, but the leadership have failed. It's about corruption and it's about incompetence. And that's the worst combination you can ever have. Corruption cannot be eradicated completely. But if managed with competency, people will continue progress and develop. But
I'm just gonna corruption, incompetency, selfishness, and leadership problem. We have to address these things if any country is serious of development. Thank you once again. We are discussing about leadership failures in the Gambia, corruption and incompetence. Is these are threats, or is this threat for national security? Before I go back to Mr. Suwareh once again, thank you for my own brother Buba Bay Bojang. Good to see you on Gunjur Online. Lamin Janneh says, Binako, thanks for joining. It's a great show. Thank you and welcome, Mr. Binako Toure. And Lamin Toure says, Ben knows his stuffs. And is it Bageji Nimaga say hi, Ben. And Albert also is sending his message. Albert says, PDOIS is the answer anyway. And Albert says system change. which we are saying. Mr. Suwareh, what you are saying is fundamental. It is so important to refer back to what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers, even though they didn't have the tools, even though a lot of people doubt them that the Gambia cannot survive by itself because of our size, because of there's no resources and all those things, even though the whole continent, Africa, especially West Africa, was consumed by dictatorship and all those things, these people, our founding fathers, maintained their cool. They didn't go into in the single party system. Even Kwame Nkrumah, we know his history. But in Jaura's case, it was multi-party. It was people insulting him. It was freedom of speech and all those things. We may disagree. But do you think Yaya Jammeh is a, is a link that destroy Gambia progression to develop to be where we are today? Because as you said, countries cannot develop within 2 decades. They
Yeah.
have to transition from one place to the other, one place to the other. Mr. X will come and take it to a certain level, and there's this link that will bridge that development and take it to another level. But instead, we have a bridge that didn't take us further, but it take us back.
Yes.
And why and how did that happen, Mr. Suarez? Go ahead.
You see, that's why I don't see. We have to. That's when people say rule of law. People would always think of the police. You see, respecting of rule of law, people just tend to when you say the due process, people don't understand the due process. They think it's all about to do the judiciary and the system. Yes, it's part of that. But when you change a government, and the change of government is not by the people, and then that government cannot be for the people.
Mm.
You see, that's why the government change should be by the people. Then it will be for the people. If any group of people decided to take power undemocratically, those people will never deliver what they want, and they might even at the beginning or back of their mind have the intentions that we need a change. We need to do this in order to bring about change. But once you get in there illegitimately, in order to entrench yourself, you'll have to start to commit crimes. You have already committed crime by taking over the country, isn't it? Now you have to find a way to avoid prematurely leaving that position, because if you do, you'll be a criminal. Now you try to legitimize yourself. And the process of legitimizing yourself, you will start to do things wrong. You keep on committing crimes as you go on, and that's why it's never wise to take over power. When it's not the people that took over the power. The difference is here. I'll give you its difference here. When Amadou Toumani Touré took over power in Mali, it was called a coup d'etat, but it was led by the people. He only acted because of the people came out, and that's the only time it's justifiable. That if nothing left here and nothing else to hold, the army is mandated in that constitution, because it's the only institution there to bring out sanity. That's where the martial law will come in. But then the army has no business in trying to entrench themselves. The army have no business apart from normalizing the situation. And if that can be reached in within a week, the army should take the priority. Depend how deep the problem is. But their intentions and everything should be how to make sure this country is put back to the hands of the people, that the constitution would continue. But when they go out there for different reasons, different ambitions, and come as a group and decided who they would never deliver. One, they don't have the tools. They don't have the tools. Who have decided that they should be. You might have the ambitions. Might have the best of intentions. But it's not enough. You need the approval of the people in order to live in peace. Now, if I elect you and take you into power, that's why if I see our former president obsessing himself with security, people around him that doesn't know security. His security is on the people. We make sure we do the right things and see whether is it easy to. I'm not saying don't have complete security, but the emphasis of security is doing the right thing. But as once you overthrow, you have to start to depend on your physical security. You have to depend on mechanisms and you are 60% of what you do is to try to keep yourself safe. Instead of 100% serving the people, 60% is trying to keep yourself safe. And that's why the instability continue. But in the sense, people think it's stability. No, because of the amount. That's why if you look at from when Yahya Jammeh came, before he left, he had battalions and battalions and battalions. And he created different counter forces in order to have control. And that's why it didn't work. Now, when he went in there, he's not capable. And what happened? He became more corrupt than anybody else. And everything fall apart. That's why we have to always. This is why I emphasize the importance of the people being aware. If we have awareness, that's where change will happen. And a meaningful change will happen. Change will always happen. But depends whether we determine the change. And to be meaningful, to change that would benefit the greater good. Democracy is about creating the greater good. Democracy does not guarantee everyone to be wealthy, but what it guarantees is that everyone would live in an environment where they can meet their potentials. And if they are disadvantaged, there are safety nets. That's why democracy goes with social justice. There are safety nets there to help. Today, if I am legally living in the country, in the United Kingdom here, if I happen to lose a job, why do you think the government gives me something? Because they know that I am part of the greater good. If I am destitute, what would happen to my kids? Why do you think the United Kingdom guaranteed? I mean, the children have the right to shelter, have the right to this. The parents might be irresponsible. But when you go to the council, they don't look at the parent. Yeah, you always, make sure you lose your job. No. They look at the condition of the children, what age they are, how vulnerable they are. Do they have what's there? That's the assessment they do. Because they know that it's important. If not, these children would end up being criminals. And if they become criminals, the society would not be benefiting from this. It's about the greater good. And that's why it's important to enlighten the people and involve change. And again, as Gambians, we have to understand whatever we do have to be in a Gambian context as well. We cannot just transplant something and bring it into Gambia. That's why, again, as I said, it's important in a Gambian sense. We are a very small nation. We are all interrelated, interlinked, interconnected. That's a strength. That's a strength in a sense. For instance, today, if I become a millionaire, if I get to Gambia, the money I have would trickle down to almost every corner of the Gambia. It will not rest in Bakau. It will not rest with my family. But if I happen to be a big criminal, it will trickle down to every corner of the Gambia. Because that's how interrelated and interlinked we are. That's why we should be careful. The proximity to power. Almost every Gambian can tell you that they can have access to power. How many countries will hear that? That's the proximity of power. What happens if the proximity of power is very short? People have this motivation or have this confidence of challenging power. And that's why it's sad that these are things that we should have considered in our security sector and structured things that people are the mindset of the Gambian soldier or serviceman. It's worked on because of the appreciation of power. Because I've lived that experience. When you think that you know how to do things and you can jump into do things. These are all this. Education is important. And people have to be aware in order to move on.
Yes, education is so important. Awareness is crucial. Thank you, Mr. Suwareh. Mr. Lamin Janneh says, it is the level of systemic corruption at the scale unimaginable that is affecting our progress. Our country has to address that to progress. What's your take on that, Mr. Suwareh? But we will come to that. Albert is proud of you guys. And my own brother, Malang Jibe, says, greetings to you, Ibi, and my classmate, Ben Suwareh.
That's my yeah, it's my badge.
Yeah,
It's
he's
my
the
badge in the army actually. Yeah,
army. Yes, so
yeah.
yes, but Yaya Jammeh came even inadvertently, or here, even if he has the good intention, but he don't have the capacity. He's not people's led and all those things, and he came and messed things up. We have to agree he messed things up. But we didn't uproot him. We pushed him out, and
Yeah.
he went. And we have a leader that's supposed to know better and change things, because of the missing link has been so retrogressive for Gambia. Not only that, it has been, as you say, 60% of his plan is to protect himself. That is why he don't mess with anybody. He has no patience with anybody. He kept using a hammer instead of using a carrot. He used sticks to eliminate people, to the extent that his own close people, family members, nobody was safe in the Gambia. But we have this man who came. Is he because he is clueless? Because I know how you fought Ben to bring to bring Adam Barrow. You were in Senegal. The underground work that you did, is just fantastic. But many Gambians put together, not because they hate Yaya Jammeh, because what Yaya is doing is he messed up big time. No matter, because some of these temporal infrastructural developments that we fall in love with is not real developments anyway. It has to have a base, but we didn't have that base. He become paranoid and start killing everybody here and there. But we push him out. I didn't say we uproot him, because we have somebody that came and he don't have any template. He has no clue, it seems, and he retrogressed and take the blueprints and the shadow of Yaya. Yaya went, he said he will be in the Gambia for next 1,000 years. But based on what is happening today, he is still in the Gambia, because the current leader not only failed us, but it seems he don't have any direction or any know-how. That's why the importance of education and awareness comes, as you mentioned. Go ahead. Why did we fail? What happened? Is it only the people's greed? Is it the leader that is in the boss driving us, has no clue where he wanted to go with that boss, and we end up in the mud? Go ahead, Mr. Suwareh.
Thank you. This is very important here. You see, as I said, I'm not surprised in a sense, because I know how change goes on. This was a systematic issue. You see, as I started from when we had a independence opportunity we had, and we let that opportunity go, where we created this political opportunism, and it bring about corruption, and the system of the political system we use in order to use patrons, in order to get the votes and so on. It was not based on enlightening people, and so that people would have the will be capable of choosing the rightful leader. You see, you can say that I give you choice. If you give me choice, but I don't have the ability to choose from this. Now, if you give me now if you give a child, let me give you an example. You take a child and said that you put an amount of money, but you put in figures of in percentage, and you give it to a child and say that's your choice. You think if the child chooses anything here, it's just a guesswork. The child cannot know what's 50% of anything. The child didn't know 20% of anything.
Yes.
This is why enlightenment is important. It's not because of you have so many parties. You have democracy, no. Now, all these people, what different do you have? The different have to be on the caliber of people you have as a candidate. Who determine the people, candidates, the awareness? If people are aware, you think twice before you put yourself as a candidate, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But if the system is not right, and people are not aware, and opportunity and everything, every Tom, Dick, and Harry would jump in. I'll give you an example now. People are talking about Bachili forming a party. How come someone like Bachili? Let's go back. You see, that's what's been created. When Yaya Jammeh operated, and as it went out, what do we have? Then we have the likes of my party. Then we have the likes of Henry Gomez. These people became they are classic opportunists. They have the likes of Ahmad Ba. You see the quality of people now building political parties. I am not saying that my party is not educated, but from my knowing my party, it doesn't have the character of a leader. But now, my father would dare go on to say that he's going to build a political party, knowing that his character is not right to lead a party, and he cannot have the support base to lead a party because Gambians, even regardless of our lack of awareness, he cannot, drive the support that he needs. But during that time, these people were allowed to run a political party because of the dictator wants the resemblance of the democracy. We all know that my party could not have qualified to have a political party and have it to operate because one, the electoral laws, he was living in exile, and all the things that you need to meet wasn't there, but the dictator would mark it up. Yes, let them have a party. It would be good for the environment, so that my people would be more divided. Henry Gomez would be the same thing. Henry lives outside. Whatever they say, Ahmad Ba is a clown and is an opportunist and so on. That's how it went on. Now, it makes it very difficult. And because of we think that we have the democracy, and we all try to use democracy and multi-party system in order to change a dictatorship. That's why we never changed the dictatorship until we came together as a movement. It's a movement that can change a dictatorship. The coalition was a movement. Yeah, but again, we formed a movement to remove the dictator. And look, I have never believed, because if people who have followed my analysis, that the Ajama was going to go out in elections. Dictators don't go in elections. But it was important to have elections and to go through the election. Because of why? It is only election, and through elections you can have the people's power. That's the only time Gambians can agree to come out, believing that they're going through a peaceful process. Once they come out in their numbers and see the strength they have, then Gambians will be emboldened to stand up to defend. And when they stand up, then the international will have to come in to side with them and in order to change. This was the strategy going to elections. It was the strategy that we said that come together, bring out the people's power. We went through election in through this and we achieved one thing. But again, look at the process. You see, that's why I said the system has to change. But a system cannot change if the people are not right. It's the people that change the system. And if the people are not right, you can draft the best law. You can draft the best constitution. But they will choose and implement it the way they want. How did we select the leader we have? Can anybody tell me that we believe that we choose the best out of the candidates that we have?
No.
Can anybody tell me that the best of Gambia were present that day in order to be chosen from?
No.
Thank you. Now, how do you expect them that thing to come out? But do you know what I know? And why I have my disappointment? I thought at least, whatever the case, and I have not regret that. And I'll never regret saying that Yaya Jammeh have left the source of the Gambia as a person. Now, I'll never regret that we have got a government in place. What we left with was to use and individuals who always work with what they have. We have achieved something. Look, 4 years now. How many people are in Gambia now saying things that they can express in themselves? How many Gambians can go anywhere and come in and out? That's our achievement. Through taking part in that process of the convention, going through and electing someone. What did you not do was to do it right. We find out. Didn't we find out now it was a corruption we use corruption was done in order to put Barrow into power. And let me say this for Gambians to understand what I mean corruption. There is nothing wrong in political parties making deals. That's political. But some of the political parties that were part of that, they did not even have the number of delegates. That's corruption. That tells you they're not fit, they're not ready. And if they're allowed to do something illegal, you expect those people to be in office and do something right.
No.
My party never had enough delegates. Henry Gomez had never had enough of delegates. Oje Jallo have never had enough of delegates. Who gave them delegates? The party of Adama Barrow, which is the UDP. They gave them delegates and they make sure they vote for Adama Barrow. You see, now you cannot build a structure solid when you don't put the right mixtures in the cement. It was already corrupt. And among themselves, among the people that participated in that, Khalifa Saleh had the better CV. But Khalifa Saleh would not win because of the corruption that happened in this. Again, you see the lack of enlightenment, they can always bring people in to do what they want them to do. And people were given a choice, but was that a choice? It was a corrupted system. And we moved from there. We decided that, okay, we went through and won these elections. And we find out that the dictator would not have left if there's no president. I keep on saying this to Gambians. And I said this, and I remember I did a video when Yahya Jammeh said he was not going to leave. And I said to Gambians, this impasse is a blessing in disguise. Do you know the reason why?
No. Go ahead.
If Yahya Jammeh, because when I studied what happened, I saw the strategy Yahya Jammeh put in. That's why I was effective in changing the narrative and dictating the narrative. And that's why people thought, oh, I must have a sixth sense about things. No, that's what my background is. And I got enough information in order to make the decision. That information, I use it as an intelligence and work with it. And Yahya Jammeh miscalculated. Yahya Jammeh wanted something. Yahya Jammeh wanted to stay in power. Yahya Jammeh would have never wanted to go. Now, what he wanted was try to rerun the elections and obviously put it in a system that this time he will make sure he wins. One, if that failed. Two, it was power sharing. They say that we have a power sharing, and that had happened in Zimbabwe. Remember with Mugabe?
Yes.
And later, as day goes on, he knows that he can manipulate the system and in order to win the next election. You see, these two. Three, the third one was, if these two fail, Yahya wanted to have a deal with the Gambian people that he would be given an amnesty, he would give in his residence, he will be left free and with the security. He knows that if in the agreement happens, it's temporary, but it's temporarily good for him because he knows that while he's in the Gambia, he can manipulate the system and probably even come back or get someone to act on his behalf. This was what we were dealing with. And it's good that we had the impasse. But what the impasse did was to give us a reason to have economic end. Why it was important to have economic end? In order to have a security guarantee. We knew that, and imagine today, if Yahya Jammeh have done the right thing. Yahya Jammeh decided to concede defeat. Yahya Jammeh decided to stay and hand over the government the right way. And Yahya Jammeh retired back to Kanilai with his security and all the thing he was entitled to. Now, imagine 1/4, then we have the parliamentary elections. Yahya Jammeh in the country, with still his his wealth, contacts and everything intact. That parliamentary elections, you think APRC would not have gone close to 50-50?
They will, yes. Yes.
Now, if APRC had 50% of the MPs, what laws could be changed in there? Can we even have an amendment? Can we even have a bill for a new constitution?
No.
Can we do anything? Can we have a TRRC or anything? Because the president doesn't have that power. You have to go to parliament. And Yahya Jammeh would have voted everything down. That's one thing that possibly. Two, what would have happened? Worst case scenario. We all know this fighting would still happen. The government and worst case scenario, in fact, Yahya Jammeh could have even won 50%, and Mama Kande could have won 20%, and combined they have 70%. What about if they come coalition in the parliament? They can vote this government out. You see, we could have lost our government. That's why I said the impasse was a blessing in disguise. The third case scenario, Yaya Jammeh could have just have been a minority in this and stayed in the country and watch things to, start to unravel. And he would be so much relevant and come back to power through the electoral process. That was a possibility. Now, we averted all this because we miscalculated and we had economic. Why is it good to have economic in the country? Was to help us to have what we call a security guarantee. In order for us to have the reforms done, and the most important reforms was the security sector reform. And move on from there on to all the other reforms that we need to do. Again, why do we have the barrow we have today? During the impasse, if Gambians can remember, I came out during the impasse when they were in Dakar. I came out and said that Barrow is about to appoint Masane Kinte as
Yes,
the
I remember that. Yes.
And I said, I spoke against that. I spoke against that. I said it's wrong. And I talked about the reasons why it is wrong. Again, people never thought about this. I talked about the need for a person, because reforms are leadership-led. Reforms are leadership-led. You cannot have someone compromise. And Gambia, if you use the word compromise, someone with conflict of interest, someone have killed someone or have beat someone. No. The virtue that you serve as the head of institutions and everything is happening under your institutions, you are capable. You are equally capable of like the junglers. You cannot serve as the CDS as men in uniform killing people and you say nothing to do with me.
No.
That sort of person cannot be. You see, these are the kind of examples I give. I said, if you do that, you're creating a precedent, and now any other person can be appointed. And it started, but people did not see it. What happened again? You see, our divide came. Some people started to call me tribalist. Regardless, all the time I was struggling, never had the word tribalist. But now they perceive that this thing, and some people perceive that this is our person, this is our people. Now we, regardless of this thing, and you forgot that when the oppression was happening, your friend or your family was part of the oppression. Why do you think that you have to see a difference here? They are not considering the greater good. You see, from that appointment on, that was the first appointment that happened even before they came out. And they said, no, he is a military aider. What's called a military aider in that sense? And it went on. From there on, everything started in Dakar. The intentions, yes, Barrow, harbor the interest of, betraying the Gambian people from Dakar. I've pointed to an interview that he did there. He was asked a straight question. He started to say, we have to do this, we have to do this. No, it was a straight question. He started to change his language. When we analyze it or when we're looking at things, we have to listen to what people say first and see what they do. Mm. He started to message what he wanted, his intention. And we came into government. Who are the people? That's why I said the reason I mentioned the diaspora at the beginning. When the change happened, I said without the diaspora, Gambia would have still been in the hands of Yaya Jammeh. But have you seen the diaspora represented in the government when they constituted? No. Who fought for diaspora representation? The only ministry that resembled was the Minister of Communication, Mr. Diejao.
Diejao, yes.
Yeah, but for the period and everything, there was nothing a diaspora strategy. There was no diaspora, and there's nothing absolutely diaspora. And that's how they started to disappoint us. And again, listen to the message. Go and look at the archives. They started to stop the use the word collusion. They started to use the word diaspora. And diaspora and collusion was the buzzword. because they wanted to move away from that. They started to see the differences now. And again, that unity of purpose that brought us the beginning of that change was the unity of purpose we decided to abandon. The same unity of purpose that gave us our independence, I mean, that's our strength, we abandoned. In the process of things, we started to look into our personal interests and started to bring about the corruption. And it manifested in the government. The minute they talked about parliamentary elections, we had the tactical alliance. Now, every political party, or the UDP for that matter, started to look at their interests rather than the national interest. And the small political parties, opportunists. My party, Henry Gomez, Ahmad Ba, and all these parties, apart from PDOS, they are into politics for what they can get. They are not into politics about change. That's why it was easy for them to side with Bao. And they continue to side with Bao. You see, my party only fall out with Barrow because of their personality class. They didn't fall out because of my party is righteous or my party is doing anything right. You see, this is why it failed. You see, and that's why the person talking about a political party, I'll tell you one thing. This is one of my reasons. I am not part of a political party. 2021, whichever political party win would not bring about change. Gambia, we are still in a struggle, and the real change to happen, two things have to happen. Either Gambian opposition to come together, again to go through a process and bring about a meaningful change, or Gambians to be ready to make sure as opposition they work strategically. Whichever opposition grouping or group decide wins election, there's another alternative that will hold the government party accountable. Barrow is likely to lose the election. But if a single political party dominates the government and you have no opposition, I tell you, we are not going to have change. The 2021 is another opportunity for the process of change to begin. It's another opportunity for process of change to begin. But does not guarantee that whoever wins the election, change will happen, regardless which political party it is. As I said, the intentions might be right. Mm-hmm. Halifa Saleh might have the best intentions with the PDIs and with every material they have. Are they going to get people from Mars to run the country?
No.
Who are they going to get? The same people. How can you change a system when you don't have people to change the system? There are so many people they can appoint on political positions. The technocrats will have to stay and serve, and there's a due process. You see, during the course of the due process, that's where the state capture do happen. This is what we had during Barrow, because we came in and we said we are following the due process. Oh, we cannot take out the permanent secretary. We have to do it this way, do it this way. And during that politicizations and everything else, and that's why we have what we have. Any party win today, yes, you can take out key people that you have the powers to appoint. You can take out the CDS, because if you did have the power as a president to do that, you can think about the IGP as a president. You can take the SIS Director General. These are the powers you have. But you cannot determine who are the other people within the system. You can bring about ministers. You can bring about the Secretary General. But you cannot ensure that every part of it. No. This is why it's important. So whatever system we think that we need to change or anything, two things have to happen. The people have to be aware. The people have to be conscious in order to act. Now, if we have the level of consciousness to a level that people can elect the people right, whoever we elect or the party that wins the elections will be better off than what we had before. But if we fail to have an opposition which is vibrant, we would just continue this process of doom.
Okay, process of doom, Mr. Suwareh. Thank you so much. Greetings to Keba Ari Kamara. This is our country. We shall not let it sink deeper under our watch. Neither God nor history will ever forgive us if we do not act to redeem Mother Gambia. Albert Mendy Khalifa Saleh will be the best candidate for Gambia. And Aliou Senghor says any president in is going to be the same. Why Gambia? Why? Because corruption will never stop in our country unless we change and maintain it for so Gambia will move forward. Inshallah, it is important. The buffoon, the dictator, was calculating, and he was a Machiavellian, but his lust for power and self-preservation damaged him. It is good we have the impasse so that he is not in the country to divide us further. It is important also, the process has been corrupted at the roots at onset. Why are we surprised that it didn't go?
Ibrahim, before you get there, let me just land with this bit.
Go ahead, Mr. Suwareh.
I talked about whatever we can have better now.
Yes.
Is whichever political party wins from the opposition. I emphasize from the opposition. We need to have like a counterbalance, be it parliament, be it a charismatic opposition and leaders to stand up to hold this government accountable. That would do a favor for them. Our worst case scenario here is to leave. If we dare, I'll say it here again, and I emphasize: if we dare mistakenly let Barrow to win an elections or Barrow to cross 2021. Gambia would completely be destabilized because we are seeing what is happening right now. Barrow, whatever the cost is, we cannot afford to have Barrow after 2021. And Gambia, we have to be very careful, in fact, to get to 2021 with Barrow at the helm. But we have seen the evidence right now, the corruption, incompetence, and everything else is there, which we can elaborate further down probably today or later another day. But yes, this is my question.
Yes, Ben, you will always come, and we will invite you, because what we are saying, it has to be in series so that people can have the gist of how history develops and how the transition comes. Because we need to get involved. Our developments cannot succeed if it is not husbanded by competent people like diasporas to get involved, so that we can have these check and balances. Any political leader, we have to have institutions, including the people. The people should be willing. You always talk about and write about the love of country, to die for this country, so that these politicians, what happened to Senegal? We see the mass movement and they reverse the things. If not, things will have been serious. So we have to come and get into politics, and be people who are going to account our leaders, so that they don't sway and look for their interests and bulldoze all of us into poverty, into regression, like what is happening in the Gambia. The health system collapse, the women's gardens, the conditions of our youths. And we are saying the frustration that comes in. Ben, you have been saying this. That's why I say your clairvoyance, your sixth sense, if I can. You say the incident in Sanya is waiting. You've been hammering this for a long, long time. There's Gunjur from Faraba, and Sukuta, and all these places, and we didn't learn anything. Finally, it just came, and who said the Gambian people doesn't riot,
they don't come out,
and all those things. You said this long time ago, and we have this the 2020 crime and safety report on the Gambian security office at the U.S. embassies in Banjul, and they identified the country as a moderate risk from civil unrest because of what is happening. So all these, if people are following you, we will say you are right. How did you know this? Is it because of the incompetence? Is it because of the compendium of all these issues that crop up, especially in Sanya? What happens? And some people are blaming the youths and all those things, especially in our NAPs. I saw Fatoumata Jawara's P's and all those things, blaming the youths, and many people are saying Gambian youths are xenophobic and all those things. But are they missing the point? Are they not criticizing? Are they not critically thinking about these issues? Can they not see all these things coming up? It's not about only the killing of one individual. It's a compendium of failures of leadership and all those things, and the poverty and all the confusion and suffering of the youths that manifested in Sanya. Go ahead, Mr. Suwareh. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you use Sanyang as an example because everything we talk about here, the leadership, corruption, incompetence, I mean, we can get this from Sanyang. But let me just give you an example here today. If I come to your house, Janekunda, and come to your cabilo, and look at your cabilo elders, put them all down, sitting down. I said, you people are good people, but your entire cabilo are useless. Your kids are, they are not productive. They are not this. Who did I insult?
You insult me.
I insult the leaders.
The ladies, yes.
Yeah, because of it was your responsibility to have a cabilo that is functional. The cabilo is productive. That's what leaders do. But let's bring it again. You see, I said, when you said national security for Gambia or some Gambians, what they understand is physical security. They understand about the soldiers, the police, or wherever it is. They understand about guns and so on. National security, what it means is the national interest. National security means what protects the country and what makes the country progress. Why you would save national security is two things. To emphasize the urgency and the sensitivity of it. Our security is important. National security is about when I took it onto myself. When when we had the minute we are into the impasse, I started to develop materials, and this was I did a risk assessment of our national security. That areas that we need to look at in order. You see, this is what citizens do. That's why I said you cannot develop the country without having the diaspora. And I get to that. I did my assessment, risk assessment, and I put it on 7 points. I put it on 7 points. And one point was dealing with the dictator and the dealing with the dictatorship and the facilitators of the dictatorship. I mean the dictator himself and what the instruments that the dictator use. That's one. Do you know why that's important?
Mm-hmm.
Hence, these dictators are alive and they are not caged. And even if they are caged, they will still always try to come back. Come back means they will prevail in what they wanted to see the country or how they wanted to see the country, or they'll try to get their own person or themselves to rule the country. Just like we see Husni Mubarak in Egypt. And we have Nunuvera came back to Bissau. We have Sassou Nguesso come back into. These are things that are real. That's one thing you have to think of. But the other thing is, and what prevail, what makes the dictatorship prevail to hold on. That's one. Because you have to have a mechanism. You risk assessment. This is one. Now, if you have this as a risk, what do you do to get rid of this risk? Then you'll come to this next one is transitional governance. Because if you look at one, it will tell you that you need a security sector reform. Then you look at two, the delivery of a transitional administration is important governance. Security is governance. Physical security is a contingency plan. But the best form of security is to avoid something happening. The other layer is when it happens, you have a plan in place to deal with it. But if you say that I have a good security, they say there's no incident. No incident report. This is because you have done that. That's why you have an intelligence here. You have different form of security in order to avoid that. The third one, and you see, gradually it's up to 7. And the third one, environment was part of it. Economy, all these things were part of it. It's what national security is. But in this case, when we came into government, we failed. What did we do? We cannot change the system because we cannot deal with what? We cannot deal with what we have there. Because straight away we started to bring the enablers close to us. Instead of getting rid of them, we were bringing them back. Some of these people were not even in government anymore. Some of these people lose their positions, we brought them back. How do we expect to bring about change? I will come to that again. When we talk about development, we talk about the capitals we have. We have our natural resources. We have our built capital. Natural resources, we all know what that means. We have our built capital. The built capital is the schools and bridges and everything we inherited. Yeah, and we have the human resources, and we have the social. I mean, our social capitals. But these things, the most important part of it, people will tell you the human resource. But the human resource cannot happen without the social capitals. Then social capitals and human resources are very important. What have we done to bring about reforms for this? If we try to look at our human resource capital, have we looked at our social capital? And that's where the diaspora could have come in. And that change would have to happen, but it did not happen. The leadership was interested in one thing. It was about themselves and what they get from it. And the evidence was there. You come in as a government, you have not reviewed. Have you ever had the Minister of Education talking about national education review?
No.
Now, you inherited, what a dictatorship does is they entrench themselves. They entrench themselves because of the mindset of the people. And they continue to walk in, informing the people in order to think that way and behave that way. If you want to liberate those people, why not get to their mindset and give them information different? How can you come Gambia, when did we last look at our curriculum? Is it fit for purpose?
No.
That's one. Education. We fell on the security sector reforms. Now, if you have the same people that did the same thing, and how you expect them to change because of you give them a different name, because you give them a different uniform, but it's the same people. It's the same laws they have. Have we changed the laws that we have? What law have we changed? No.
Nothing.
And what change do we have? Nothing, absolutely. Now everybody is interested in what they are. Everything else we inherited should have been reviewed. Even in a democracy. You remember in the United Kingdom, we have a conservative for 18 years, Margaret Thatcher. When Labour came, they reviewed and came with new plans, with education, with healthcare, in order to deliver different. We have seen what is happening in America right now. The laws that Trump could not have done things without the laws. Now, everything is going to reverse. That's what you do. Have we reversed anything? Not absolutely. Then the incident in Salem is to do with leadership. Failure of leadership. Why is it failure of leadership? Didn't we have Faraba before? When we had Faraba, didn't we have a commission? When we have a commission, the reason having a commission is not to learn from it, from the mistakes.
Yeah.
And the commissions did actually look at Salem. It did look at Gunjur and other places. And a commission report was developed. And recommendations were made. Have you ever heard of anything about the commission report and the implementation of the commissions? None.
Nothing.
Everything is forgotten about. You ask yourself why? Because you have vested interest that wants the status quo to stay the same. And who are those vested interests? Are the sectors. Again, as I said, the government is made of the public sector, the private sector, and civil society. Now, you have the private sector and the public sector in collision, and always that's the case. And they marginalize the civil society. How did they marginalize civil society? They make us not be united in the purpose of protecting things for a greater good. In this sense, we learn from all this. But before Faraba, didn't we have incidents in Gunjur about Golden Lake, about the West Pipes, about the stent, about everything, about land exploitation, about every other thing? Has this government ever resolved any of them? Didn't the citizens of Gunjur, mainly of youths, get progressively went through the courts, got their own finances, tried to get things in? What happened? The then Minister of Trade, who is from Commerce for itself, the answer to it, withdraw the case from this thing and said that they're going to renegotiate it. Did they solve the problems?
No.
What do you expect when the rule of law is not followed? When do you expect the government itself did not respect the rule of law? It's not respect the principle of social justice. Who is benefiting from the resources? Who has been harmed? What has been done with this? Now it went on. The incident that happened in Gunjur, Sanyang, the death of the gentleman and the killing, that's just a catalyst. But the problems are compounding in not only in Gunjur, it's entirely in the Gambia. It's entirely in the Gambia.
Mhm.
That's why I said what happened in Sanyang is not a Sanyang issue. When the people in Gunjur talk about the environment or anything else, it's not the problem of Gunjur, it's a national problem. And if you look at it, in fact, it's an international problem, because environment is something we all share. What you do to the environment in Gunjur affects the entire universe. But in this case, Gunjur, Sanyang happened. Now, traditionally, let me bring it to the people. Traditionally, we all know the coastal towns. Bakau. Bakau to, Bakau to the last, to Kato.
Kato, yes.
People say in 50 years, it's almost 100 years that we have Senegalese fishermen coming to our country and to fish, and some of them go, and naturally some of them stay, intermarried, and that's what happened, and be part of that community. It's over 100 years. The same reason you have Ghana town in Bufu. If you go to Liberia, you have a Ghana town.
Mhm.
And I think Sierra Leone, you have Ghana town for the same reason. But our approximately with Senegal, you are likely to have more Senegalese than anything else. We live amicably together. We have never, almost 100 years. Why did I say 100 years? Because I know in families in Bakau who have lived there and probably around that time, because they are great-great-grandparents, we were fishermen from that. You see, all these things have been happening, and it's the same thing as you go to Gunjur and other places. We have never had problems. In fact, we interdepend on each other. We welcome them because we know that we don't have the skills. We benefit from them living with us and everything else. It went on. But when the dictatorship happened, these companies came, Chinese, had their contracts with the dictator. Who was consulted? Nobody was consulted.
No.
How can you bring a development into a country or into a community? Environmental risk assessment, was it done?
No.
If it was done, was it done competently? No. The social impact assessment, society itself has to be looked at. Now, if you look at an industry that would bring in overwhelming number of young men, you know where young men and congregate, what will happen? They have their needs. They have to socialize. When they socialize, part of their need is women, isn't it?
Yes.
They need partners. And in this friction, if you have an overwhelming number, you are bringing competition between those young men and the inhabitants, the natives of the place. One, you will have that country. Another thing is jobs. The jobs are limited. Now, if you import people to do the job, you are creating problems. That's why when you do the social impact assessment, these are the kind of things that you look at. What kind of skills is it required for this industry? How do we make sure the skills are available from the community itself? The community to have ownership. But have ownership. You think if Gunjur were benefiting from that factory, sorry, the Sanyang was benefiting from that factory, you don't think that people will go out and defend the factory?
Yes, they will. Yes.
Oh, no. They have no ownership of it. Now, you don't have the environmental, you don't have the social, impact assessment. Economically, it's not good for the community, not good for the country. Another industry, which is the bigger industry, tourism, where the natives actually really benefit from, was absolutely taken out due to this factory being present. But the life of the natives itself, the people of Sanyang, the breeding, the stand and everything else, understand, people don't understand. It's not only a smell, it comes with the byproduct of the oil and gets into everything. It gets with people's lungs. It's born oil. It's not healthy. You see, all these things are the problems that are affecting the people, then that factory should not be have there because it's not there. But what this government do? Did they review it? The people of Sanyang did demonstrate many times. There was a time it was shut down, but it opened up illegally. All these problems were not looked at. Now, with all these problems going on, who is to blame? The leadership. The leadership should have ensured these things are not happening. And when this thing happened, we all had. And I want people to, when they listen to some of the videos, you hear the native of Sanyang. Some of them speak in Mandinka, or most of them, but they were referring to the factory as Izin. Izin in French means factory. But even the native, if they are so influenced by the presence of those Senegalese, to the extent of that they speak French to refer to a factory, that shows you the level of influence. That's an indicator. It's not justifying any violence, no. But we are talking about the root causes of that violence. You cannot bring an industry that exploit the people, and that industry you bring in people who are not part of that country. This thing, where empathy will not come out of there. They will be seen as exploiters. Now, an individual came out from that community and did something wrong, and the community perceived the police, because we all heard about the circumstances of the environment. The way they stop citizens from going into the plant, visiting the plant or working in the plant, everything else, it's like a segregation. How would you people feel? These are all grievances that happen. What does the government do about it? Nothing, absolutely. Now, when incidents happen, peaceful demonstrations happen, you'll have other factors. Other people will behave differently. The bulk of the people present will be peaceful. They want to have something done about this, but it only takes a few to start. And this mob justice, the sense of mob mentality will kick in. I'll tell you that those burning that happen will be done by a team of few people.
Yes.
But now it's as if that everybody was part of it. None. And most of these people, probably they have no interest in saying anything change. It was an opportunity for them to create that chaos, for them to get what they want, to steal something. Probably that's what it is. You cannot blame the people from Sanyang, you cannot blame the youth, but you have to blame the leadership.
You have to blame the leaders. Thank you so much, Mr. Suwareh. Kabiro SK says in Mr. Suwareh, you gave scenario that if APRC has majority in the National Assembly was going to be bad for the coalition, but forget the fact that APRC might as well become the majority leader if we win National Assembly election as a coalition and not tactical alliance. You see, every independent MP will contest alone, one, and not together. Yes, but we will come there. We will do that. This Sanyang point is very important. Ben, I have a trumpet interview with Omar Ba. He interviewed my Fatih here, you man, but he's just kind of reiterating some of the points that says, because he says the incident in Sanyang and elsewhere are not failure of intelligence, but rather the reckless failure of leadership to act on of actionable intelligence. It is the inexcusable omission on the part of the policymakers to engage communities to tackle early warning signals and to effectively respond to urgent need of communities. It translates to a failure of leadership not only to grasp or appreciate the critical exigencies, but also to devalue the recommendation of those state agencies with the ability to monitor and analyze public pulse from the prism of national security. I hope the state, as the duty bearer, will adopt a more pragmatic approach, he advised, because, what you were saying in terms of failure of leadership, I agree with Mai and what
I'll tell you about Mai. Mai would prescribe. He have the intelligence and the flow and everything. He would prescribe all the right things. But would he do the right things when he's given the opportunity? No.
But you said Barrow is a very irresponsible person, not fit to be called a leader. This government makes statements restricting, because in the midst of all these things, And in the midst of the COVID-19 restriction, Barrow is visiting Lumos and all those things after announcing the update these things. But and you said these people, how they think everything is money. Instead of coming out, no president, no line ministries or anybody comes and makes statement. You said, no religious leader. You say we expect our political, religious, and cultural leaders to visit Sanyang to appeal for calm. Instead of sending not only the Senegalese, and these people are against the Senegalese.
Yeah,
they are putting the Senegalese there, and Ebrima Janneh is going with $10,000, to give it to the family. Thank God the family reject that money. Just a template from Yaya's playbook. When he kick out and kill our kids, and he will go and give them some money. Barrow is not learning anything. Go ahead, and you capture all these things in your post.
I mean, that's what I said is when this all happened. I mean, now, can you tell me what's the benefit of fish meal factory for the Gambia? If this government was serious and looked at the fish meal factory, they would have made sure they looked at the contract and how it was designed and just seized the license because it wasn't done right. No penalties will come after government. Now, one, you think that is it sustainable for the way these people are fishing in our territory? That Gambia, we already finished. Our stock is finished. Not talking about the future. Our stock is already finished because it's not sustainable. And now, I'll tell you, if we continue, next minute we are going to import the fish from China. This is what China wants. One, the stock is not sustainable. It's not sustainable the way they fish it. We all seen this shepherd when they went to patrol. The examples they saw. One. Two, what benefit does government have from this amount of resources being taken from our source? How much does government make out of this? Nil. Do you know who made something? Individuals. Technocrats been bribed and ministers been bribed and Barrow been bribed. But as a country, what we gain from it is negligible because we don't gain. You don't that amount of fish. Look at the lack of fish in our diet. Gambians cannot afford fish in that. Just imagine the importance of the protein. Imagine the importance of the iodine. Imagine the importance of the vitamins and the things for fish oil. What are we gaining from this? One, our diet is growing. We are not having these things needed. Two, economically, it doesn't make sense. We could have done this ourselves and make more money out of it and sustainably to be fishing for hundreds of years to come, but not to be scooping our sea and disregarding. That's two. Three. Now, if one industry is killing another industry, what's the point of that exercise? No. Tourism is being killed because of fish meal factory, and we are not gaining from fish meal factory. You want to tell me that the James Gomez and the environment minister and all these people, the local government minister, they don't know the impact of this? Do you think that they believe? Do you think they believe that this is good for Gambia?
No, they don't.
No, but why would they not fight against it? Because what they get from it. That's why I expect politicians to come out, to political parties to tell us explicitly that if they win elections, fish meal factory will go out of the country. Not negotiable. It's not good for us. There's no way it's good for us. But again, it happened. As I said, security, as my party said, we have enough intelligence. Intelligence is information. You cannot have intelligence more than a commission report. We have all this. We have seen it. We have enough information to take to do the right thing. But their hands are tied with what? Corruption. They all know that it's not to the interest of the state. Look at what was happening in Gunjur. How can a Chinese company goes into women's garden, started to map the women's garden? That tells you that they didn't even take permission from the women that owned the garden.
No, they didn't.
Who took this decision? These are the leaders again. Because of what they wanted to expand their plant. They have enough. It's not. You see, this is where we're going with it. But after everything, what should be done? This incident happened. And again, I credit the Alcalo. and I credit the youth leaders because I saw the youth leaders that day. The police could not contain that. It was the Alcalo and the youth leaders I saw on the ground appealing to the rest of the youths to draw back. And they did. What we have expected, as I said, we expected our leaders, our civil society leaders, especially the religious community, the traditional leaders to come out to appeal for calm. We expected our politicians to be on the ground. What we don't expect is a reinforcement of security.
No, definitely.
Because already the situation was calm. Now all we need to do is to consolidate on that calmness and start to find a solution. And I said the beginning of the solution would be looking at the commission's report, Farava Commission report, and then
yes,
and make sure the fishmeal factors are out of there and move on. But importantly, in fact, what they did was to try to send in soldiers or armed these things, and especially people from ECOMEC and likely to be Senegalese into it. You are in fact putting fuel to the fire.
The fire.
What do you expect them to do? What do you expect the army to do? Army is not to deal with civil unrest. We have mechanisms in order to diffuse. You diffuse it. You take it out. If a fire is happening, you take the fuel from the fire. You sniff the oxygen out, take the heat out, and stuff like that. But you don't try to put it in. That's a serious thing. And I have seen them now starting to pick up some youths, accusing them of being protected. Are they, Lucy, these are the wrong things to do. Mm-hmm. Now they are trying to use the physical security again to address this problem. But they fail to realize that this is a failure of leadership. This government would not solve this problem. The same way they failed to solve the problem in Faraba. And remember, lives were lost in Faraba. Remember, people were arrested in Faraba, and nothing has been done. And they are not going to deal with Sanyang issue, just as they failed to deal with Mandinari. People forget about Mandinari. People forget about the Kabafita. Every other place in the Gambia, there are environmental destruction, there's abuse of power, there's corruption, everything. The government have never done anything, this thing, because they benefit from it. Yes. Let people ask themselves, where do Barrow get his finances to be splashing as it is, if it's not for corruption? And yes, the incompetency in the security sector is for all to see.
Yes.
It's for all to see. Now, these are the reasons why we have Sanyang, but we cannot blame Sanyang onto the people. We blame the government for failing. And yes, Gambians have been really patient.
Yes, we can blame the government. That's facts, really, even though some National Assembly members like Fatima what do we expect?
May I add? Yes. May I add? I condemn the entire violence that took part, that happened in this thing, especially towards the police station, and to the civilians, the Senegalese citizens that were in there. I condemn that violence. Yes. What I would not condemn is the burning down of the factory. I would be a liar. I would be a hypocrite if I condemn the burning down of the factory. If I have the means, I would burn down all the fish meal factories in the country. They are a detriment to our nation and should not be tolerated.
Thank you, Ben.
There's a point.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a point furthermore.
Yes.
The issue you talked about, the issue about xenophobia. Mm-hmm. You see, Gambians, we are quick to blame ourselves. One minute they say, 1 minute they'll turn around to say, Gambians, we always insult each other. Gambians, we always do this. Every country does that.
Everybody does that, yes.
Everybody does that.
Yes, that's
But
true.
we don't credit ourselves for the good things that we create for ourselves and create for others. We don't celebrate ourselves or celebrate our people or celebrate the country for what we have achieved. That's why I said I don't throw the bathwater with the baby. That's why I said I will always celebrate the change or the process that we started in 2016 in taking out the Ajame. Yes, I am disappointed, but I'll celebrate that because it gives us this independence. and the democracy that we have, and to try to bring about this thing. Let me give this thing, and I want to express this for Gambians to hear.
Go.
Gambia is the most hospitable nation in this on earth. You cannot compare it with Senegal or any country, and I have my proof to this. Gambians, if we travel, we meet other people that have lived in our country before. What do they tell us? How hospitable we are. That's one. Two, not because of people tell us, because of the physical example. Apart from Lebanon, and the reason why Lebanon have more foreigners in the country than us, because Lebanon, the conflict in Syria and the conflict from Palestine, make the Lebanese population and the exodus of Lebanese citizens in going for greener pastures. This is the difference. But in the Gambia, the Gambian population is entirely made of what we term as foreigners from other West African countries mainly. And Gambia being the poorest in resource wise in all of, or the smaller economy, I said, in all of West Africa, Gambia have every citizen and a sizable number in our country, especially the closer they are to us. That's why we have the amount of Senegalese in the country. We have amount of Guinea-Bissau in the country. We have amount of Guinea-Conakry. We have amount of Malians. We have the amount of Nigerians and Ghanaians.
Nigerians, Sierra Leoneans.
It's
yes.
because of our tolerance. Gambia have never had an incident of national outrage on civilians, of xenophobia and to expel citizens. Have never happened in the Gambia.
No.
Go and look at the history of xenophobia in Africa. Senegal, we have seen the evidence of xenophobia against Mauritania. Senegal, we have seen the evidence of xenophobia against Malians. Senegal, we have seen evidence of xenophobia against the Guinea-Conakry. And vice versa, we have seen that. We have seen it in Angola. We have seen it between Nigeria and Ghana.
And Cameroon.
We have seen it between Nigeria and Cameroon. We have witnesses in many African countries. Not once it have ever happened in the Gambia. Instead, I said there's something called the Gambian dream. Just as people go to America, say there's an American dream. Go and look at the most industrious people in the Gambia. In all sense, most of them, and almost all of them, are recent migrants or not of generation. And these people did not come to serve our public sector. They came to participate in our economic activity. And they become rich, they become wealthy because of we are accommodated. We share, we are hospitable, we give, we patronize, we do everything. To the extent of we treat people that come in more than we treat our own, better than our own. This is an evidence we have seen. We have seen people transform and continue to transform themselves since Gambia have independence. This is the testimony of Gambians. But it's always lazy for us to turn around, to turn around to ourselves and beat ourselves. Gambia become homophobic before. No, the incident in Sanyang was well articulated by Alcaro, and I had the Imam articulated, and that's the history in Bakau and everywhere else in the Congo. This is an isolated incident, but the reason it happened, in fact, too, is the industrialization of our fisheries based on importing migration, migrants in order to work. This is the thing. If you do that, it will happen.
Yes, you are right, Mr. Suwareh. Gambian dream. I have one of my sisters, married to a Lebu man from Senegal in Gunjur. We've been neighbors since I was young. I remember I played with some Senegalese kids on our Sunday street in Gunjur. So, but this incident really is a failure of leadership, because what Chinese want to do is to come and nationalize our potential export quotas. All the export that are coming from the Gambia, we deem them Gambian export, but in fact, it is a Chinese export going to China. All the monies are not staying in the Gambia. They are going back to China to feed the insatiable appetite of China for their economy. and they are grabbing lands. But what you said is so fundamental. Our coastal line is our oil, is our gem. It's a pride to us, and it's environmental friendly. You don't put industries on the coastal line, especially fish meal industries. Find an industrial part in Kiang, in Jara, and all those things. And some of the industries that can with regulation, put them there to develop those areas. You already develop places, your small businesses, you are killing them because of these fish meal companies. But not that. These young small boys, if they can this, the Gambian diaspora, Ben, if we have time, but I will bring you diaspora, and because I saw you share some of the very, very important topics on the contributions of diasporas. These diasporas, about 48% of our GDP was contributed between 2019 and 2020. If we can contribute that, why do you have to give the fish meal company to a small Chinese boys, 3 of them in Gunjur, controlling everything, when we can invest in these things and control and respect our people? They are beating our people and all those things. But we will do that for another day. Ben, last time, we have only about 4 minutes because it's about 2 hours. I have to leave you, really, for you to go. But the cocaine issue you mentioned, at the fish mill, when it was burned down, and you said yes, because the fish is a very good place.
Okay.
Exactly, the cocaine there.
Thank
But
you.
I have to state this before. The Dembo Janneh of the Director of Forensic Investigations at NDLEA confirmed that the powder that they saw, he said, we came here to verify or clarify the rumor that are spreading around town that there were drugs found at this factory. I call this from the Trumpet newspaper. So far, from the analysis that we conducted, there is no proof that the substance were drug. But he didn't say what that substance is. That is the information we can pass to the public now. He stressed. That was it. But this powder was there. And in huge numbers.
Let me thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Yes.
I had a reporter. One of the videos, I had a reporter reporting and going through the plant, explaining that this is the kitchen, this is the dormitory, this is the medical office, this is the office where there was foreign currency bond and some looted, and went to another one of the stores and said there's cocaine here, everything burned down. That's where I had it. I didn't make that comment. Someone, a friend of mine, Madeline Gomez, wrote a post, said that I think it was satiric question. What is cocaine doing in a fish meal factory? And people were joking to say that, don't you know that the fish take cocaine? Those kind of things. And I made a post. I said the plant would be a good source and infrastructure to re-export the cocaine, because there's a bulk of cargo going out. You can easily put it in the bulk, but again, the smell, the stench of fish can easily mask the smell of cocaine. That's what I've put down there. I was not the person that claimed that cocaine was there, but now let's analyze what the NDNA say. First, the credibility of this NDNA is not there. We know that they are not credible people. Because we have seen the incidents of cocaine and everything. Are they giving us any information? No. Now, two, if you ask ourselves, why would the lady, just imagine, this is a fish factory, now they turn around to say, there's cocaine here. The possibility of that, why would she just imagine to say, I know there's cocaine everywhere in the Gambia now, because it's just become a drug, continue to be a drug hub. But to think of it was in the street, nobody thought about that. Then why did the woman say that? There's an element of truth here, or possibility of thinking. Why did you think that? Two, the NDNA, what do they have to test? If cocaine was born out, it would be completely criminated as an ash. What kind of device do they have to test to tell us cocaine was present here or not? It's an absolute lie. I can tell you that they have nothing. All these instruments they have is to check. These are basic laboratory things they use. But to say that they have a forensic equipment to test born of this, they're lying. That's one. If they had found cocaine, or whoever found cocaine, I don't expect them to tell us.
No.
I don't tell them. You think that people that operate for cocaine, they have a buy-in. They control the system. That's why they dare do it. And when the cocaine comes in the country, it's re-exported. How do we expect the exportation? You have to have an infrastructure. And this is how it's done. Remember the cocaine found in Bonto?
Yes.
That company had a fisheries company, isn't it, called Holigam?
Yeah, they have. Yeah,
that's
they have.
Holigam. Because two things it does. When you have your boats and go into sea, high sea, most of the cocaine come through the high seas. You intercept it, people dropped it, light aircraft dropped it and pick it up. But again, when the cocaine comes into the country, it's just a transit point. Now, the cocaine have to leave this country to go to Arab countries, to go to Europe, to go to Americas and China and other places. And it's an opportunity. I am not saying it happened. It's an analysis of the possibilities that could happen. But for the NDNA to come with that excuse, it's just crap. Gambians are smarter than that.
Yes.
They don't have credibility.
Definitely.
I cannot trust their statement. Or if they cannot tell me the evidence we have seen and nothing has been done about that, what do they tell? How can they assure me of evidence? They cannot produce. This is the situation we have.
This is the situation we have. Gambia is a narco state, as you always say, and you keep asking questions and there's no answers. You say the Gambia has decreed to a narco state, Senegal, alleged armed robbery, estimated on 6 million, no statement from Barrow, Interior or Justice Ministry, no significant arrest. Who is protecting the drug cartels? No, then finally, maybe in 2 minutes, I'm just going to say, Mr. Per Silva said, of NAWEC says, some amount NAWEC has experienced something unusual with their account at Ajib, and he indicated, and we initially it was about 8.5 million, but now we know it's about up to 15 million. But the Mr. Per, that's the public relation officer of NAWEC, he didn't even know the amount that was in their cash power meter account at Ajib, but the money mysteriously disappeared. Just 2 minutes, and we wrap it there. We cannot go beyond 2 minutes, 2 hours, okay, because you just come from work now, and we need to wrap it up.
Now, as I said, we can have all this next time.
No, we will come back. We will definitely.
Okay, let me just do a quick pointer. How many armed robberies do we have recently within 12 months? Remember a judge. The judge house was attacked by armed robbers, and that judge has security from PIU, and they still got hold her hostage and went to. We had someone make allegations of 6 million been hijacked in his car. We have seen evidence of someone else's car being broad daylight been hijacked in the streets. All this we have not had anything. Yeah. Now the issue about NAWEC. Do you know that? As from, I remember NAWEC was having almost 30 accounts.
Yes, I know that. Yes.
And now they reduce, the previous managing director reduced that to 12. They still have 12. Why would an institution have 12 accounts in different? How can you keep tab on that? And again, this tells you where we are. And when things fall apart, this is what happened. Everybody would try to help themselves, knowing that by December things would completely go. And despite of things happening, we might not even get to December. There are many reasons that can destabilize this country. Because Barrow would not say anything. Because when you accept, Barrow is the only democratic elected president that would take envelopes directly, not indirectly. These are people that give them. This is how corrupt this country is. That's why he would never talk about corruption. This country should pass an anti-corruption bill. What did they do? They passed a bill about Hazel.
Hazel, yes.
and these are the things. These are the issues we're talking about. Then the 15 million might be even more than 15 million.
It might be, yes, because
do you know most of
what is in that account? How much is in that car? He don't even know. He didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes, Ben.
We'll have to catch you again.
Yes, we will. I will bring you back again. I will reach out to you, and we will schedule. Once again, thank you to all our listeners and for being patient with us. Ben will not disappoint. Actually, we have a lot to discuss about our country, and it's important we have frank discussions about some of the issues happening. That's the way to create awareness, so that we as the people who employ our leaders, to be check and balance, and put them on the pressure, so that this country can develop. It's a small country, beautiful country. We can develop it together when we stand together, when we united together, and that's what people like Ben is doing, so that they can educate us and empower us, so that we can know our role. Because we cannot leave everything to these politicians. They're too incompetent. They're too selfish. They're too corrupt, and they will wrestle this nation down if we don't stand up. Mr. Suwareh, please, in a minute, your last word for our viewers, and we will finish it from there.
Thank you very much for inviting me on this independent platform. And that's the reason I am independent. That's the reason I like to advocate or speak on independent platforms. Yes, independence is subjective in this sense, but because we all have our biases. But as I said, thank you very much for giving me this privilege. And things that are said here would not be agreed by everyone, but I am happy that I am talking about things that people would have to disagree on. And this is the beauty of democracy, and this is what we fought for. All we have to do is just to respect each other's view and engage each other and to educate each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suwareh. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, Mr. Thanks.
Ethnic Isles, ethnicisles.com. Ethnic Isles is a newly launched online store brought to you by Kadijaba to the Senegambian African community. Ethnic Isles will sell all your ethnic products at a reasonable price, just under one click. Visit our friendly online site where you can buy products from clothing, groceries, fashion accessories, African and Caribbean food, all under one roof. Ethnic Isle is also providing a door-to-door delivery service to your families in the Gambia. Tell your friends and families back home, Ethnic Isle is here for easy and hassle-free shopping on www.ethnicisles.com. Any information, contact our friendly admin. We're here to help. Ethnic Isles is our own. Ethnic Isles, ethnicisles.com. Coco Ethnic Isles, the gun bubes. Ethnic Isles, the website bubes. The boutique sibut internet. Kulenko isi di kali jabang. Jamale gosis askani and boki Senegambia. Atulu Africa. Ethnic Isles. Amal na leen bépp xeeti bagage yu demee ni ki si yére ak piisu rafet bagage si lekka yu amul façon boole si nag Ethnic Isles na fàttewuñ suñ jigéen ñi amal na ay takaayu rafet yoo xam ne bari qualité la def. Ethnic Isles di leen yëgal ne am nañ delivery service sa Gambia di leen yóbbu seen bagage ba sa bunti kër ñu koy woyee door to door service si anam bu wóor te doo si son. waaw kooku Ethnic Isles ba tey Ethnic Isles nee na pour jokkoo ak ñoom dem leen si www.ethnicisles.com. Ethnic Isles bu ngeen bëggee xam lu wóor jokkoo leen ak suñu liggéeykat yu xarañee ñu tontu leen si nu mu gën a gaawee. Ethnic Isles.
Sponsor a Gambian girl through SAG Foundation. We are placing girls on the path to success through education. Our aim is to realize a Gambia where every girl is given equal access to education to reach their full potential. This is how we do it through our model of affecting generational systematic change. This is Amy. She is not in school, an underprivileged girl excluded from school due to lack of financial support. The SAG Foundation enrolled her into school, and she is equipped with all the essential resources to have a quality education. Amy is now making a difference in her community. Amy is now contributing towards the generational systematic change. Education changes everything for a girl.
Sana bola mau.